So here the biology live session for respiration part 1 for grade 9. In this video, we're going to identify the different organs of the respiratory system. We will study the characteristics that favor the gaseous exchange at the level of the alveoli. We will study the reaction between hemoglobin and the respiratory gases, oxygen and carbon dioxide, and how to write the word and the chemical equation in part 2, meaning that next week. And we will distinguish between the synthesis reaction and the assimilation reaction also in the part 2 video. This video is part 1. So respiration mainly is contributed to two of the most important gases, which are oxygen and carbon dioxide. Respiratory system. Respiratory system, let's move to the organization of the respiratory system. Respiratory system is composed of the nasal cavities in the nose. You have the mouth, the pharynx, the larynx, the trachea, the lungs, the bronchus, the bronchioles, the alveoli, and we have the diaphragm. Pathway of the air along the respiratory system. You have to know that the air enters through the nasal cavities, then it moves to the pharynx, then to the larynx, then to the trachea, to the bronchus, to the bronchioles, and finally to the alveoli, the air sacs inside the lungs. So breathing, what is breathing? Breathing is the actual mechanical intake of air. Breathing consists mainly of two phases: inhalation, exhalation. Inhalation is the process of taking in air. This air is going to be rich in oxygen and poor in carbon dioxide. This is inhalation. So we are taking in air. While exhalation is the process of releasing air outside the body. This air is going to be poor in oxygen and rich in carbon dioxide. This is exhalation. What is diffusion? And pay attention to the diffusion. Diffusion is the movement of a particles of a substance from a medium, from a place of high concentration of the substance, or high pressure of the substance, or high volume of the substance, to a medium of low concentration, or low pressure, or low volume, or low amount in this substance. For example, if you have in my class, I have 50 students. Okay, and in the second section, in 9B, for example, we have 2 students. So the student they are moving from the medium or from the class containing high concentration or high number of students to the one containing low number of students. So this is called diffusion. So diffusion is the movement of a particle of a substance from a medium of high concentration or a high amount or high volume or high pressure to a medium, low concentration, low amount, or low pressure. Okay, so kindly note, please focus on this word diffusion. This is the key word in the coming slides or in part 2. So this is the key word. What is the role of the respiratory system? Respiratory system has an important role. It's responsible for the gaseous exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide, respiratory gases, which are oxygen and carbon dioxide. Oxygen gas, it's O2, and carbon dioxide, CO2. The pathway of the air along the respiratory system of mammals, we start from the nose, nasal cavities, then to the pharynx, to the larynx, to the trachea, bronchus, the plural is bronchi, the branch of bronchus, bronchioles, and alveolus, the air sac, which plural is alveoli. Blood vessels. The lungs, they are very rich in blood vessels. Why? We will see. Lungs, they are spongy. Why? Due to the many spores for the air sacs. They are light and also they are elastic. All of you know that we have 2 lungs. One of them is the right, which is made of 3 lobes, and the second, which is the left, is made up of 2 lobes. Gas exchange between air and the blood occurs at the level of the alveoli in the lungs. We have 3 main characteristics for the gaseous exchange at the level of the alveoli. These characteristics, they help the gaseous exchange at the level of the alveoli. What are these characteristics. Number one, large surface area. Large surface area for the alveoli. We have large surface area. Thin wall of the alveoli. This is the second. Highly vascularized, rich in blood vessels. And this explains why the lungs, they are very rich in blood vessels to allow the gaseous exchange at the level of the alveoli. That's why the lungs, they are highly vascularized. What the meaning of highly vascularized? Meaning that they are rich in blood vessels. So I repeat, we have three main characteristics that favor, that help, that facilitate, that make it easier, that allows the gaseous exchange at the level of the alveoli. Number one, large surface area of exchange. Thin wall of the alveoli. C, highly vascularized, which means it's rich in blood vessels. Okay, let's move now to the activity 3, respiratory gas exchange. Which gases? They are the respiratory gases. So what happens to the blood when it enters the lungs? Let's have this question. This question or this table is showing the variation of the quantity of oxygen and carbon dioxide in milliliter for each 100 milliliter of blood, the blood entering and that leaving the lungs. We said compare the results showing the composition of blood entering and that leaving. Number two, interpret the results of the table showing the composition of the blood entering and blood leaving. Here in the table we have blood entering, blood leaving. We have quantity of oxygen gas in milliliter for each 100 milliliter of blood, and we have quantity of carbon dioxide gases in milliliter for each 100 milliliter of blood. Quantity of oxygen in blood entering was 15, while leaving it was 20. Compare, we have to say greater than or less than, higher, lower. So here, the quantity of oxygen in milliliter for each 100 milliliter of blood, and the blood entering the lungs was 15 milliliter, which is less than that, which that refers to the quantity of O2. So, which is less than that, the blood leaving the lungs, which is 20 milliliter. Moving to the carbon dioxide. Pay attention, you don't have to compare oxygen to carbon dioxide. Oxygen entering with oxygen leaving. Carbon dioxide entering with carbon dioxide leaving. Quantity of CO2 in the blood entering the lungs was 53 milliliter, which is less than that, and the blood leaving the lungs, which is 49 milliliter. So the blood entering the lungs contain less oxygen than the blood leaving the lungs, 20 milliliter. You have to use the value greater than, less than, higher, lower. These are the words or the phrases used for comparison. You don't have to say increase or decrease. Increase or decrease, this is used in the case of analysis. Okay? Interpret. The quantity of oxygen in the blood entering lungs is 15 milliliter. Here and increases. Pay attention here. We say increases. So increases, it's used in the analysis. Higher or lower, greater than, less than, it's used in the comparison. And it increases to 20 milliliter in the blood leaving the lungs. What does this indicate? This indicates that oxygen diffuses from the lungs to the blood. Why? Why oxygen diffuses from the lungs to the blood? It diffuses from a medium of high concentration of oxygen, which is the lungs, to the medium containing low concentration of oxygen, which is the blood. That's why I told you you have to focus on the word diffusion. So here, oxygen diffuses from a medium of high concentration to a medium of low concentration. The quantity of carbon dioxide in blood entering the lungs is 53 milliliter, and it decreases to 49 milliliter in the blood leaving. What does this indicate? This indicates that carbon dioxide diffuses from medium or high concentration of carbon dioxide, which is the blood, to medium of low concentration with carbon dioxide, which is the lungs. Okay? So here the interpret, analyze, Analysis plus indication. And analysis, we don't use greater than or less than. We use increases or decreases. So the blood entering is poor in oxygen, while the blood leaving is going to be rich in oxygen. So blood entering the lungs is poor in oxygen, while blood leaving the lungs is going to be rich in oxygen. Question number 2, describe the gas exchange with blood at the level of the alveolus. You have to know that oxygen gas diffuses from the lungs, which is rich in oxygen, to the blood, which is poor in oxygen, while carbon dioxide diffuses from where to where? From the blood, which is rich in carbon dioxide, to the lungs, which is poor in carbon dioxide. So you have to know this. Oxygen gas diffuses from the lungs, which is rich in carbon dioxide, rich in oxygen, sorry, to the blood, which is poor in oxygen, and carbon dioxide diffuses from where to where? Opposite, from the blood, which is rich in carbon dioxide, to the lungs, which is poor in carbon dioxide. This is schematized. This is scheme showing the respiratory gas exchange. Oxygen gas diffuses from the lungs to the blood, medium of high concentration to the medium of low concentration, while carbon dioxide, the red arrow, diffuses from the blood toward the lungs, which are medium poor in carbon dioxide. This question number 3, constructing a histogram. You know how to draw a histogram, blood entering and the blood leaving. Question number 4, describe the gas exchange with blood at the level of the tissues. Oxygen gas diffuses from the blood, which is rich in O2, to the cells. Cells, they need O2, so they are poor in O2. So the oxygen gas diffuses from the blood, which is rich in O2, to the cells that are poor in O2, or the tissues or the organs, while CO2 diffuses from the cells or tissues or organs that are rich in O2 to the blood, which is poor in CO2. So you have to pay attention to this whenever we are talking about the level of the tissues. So oxygen gas diffuses from the blood, rich in O2, to the cells, organs, or tissues which are poor in O2, while CO2 diffuses from the cells, organs, or tissues that are rich in CO2 to the blood, poor in CO2. Question number 5, what favors the respiratory gas exchange at the level of the capillaries? Remember, first, we have at the level of the alveolus. Some of them, they are common. They are similar. Large surface of capillary. There it was large surface area of exchange. Thin wall of blood capillaries. So here we have thin wall of blood capillaries and slow circulation of blood and blood capillaries. Activity 4, talking about the transport of respiratory gases. Blood entering the lungs, it has dark red color. Why? Because it's poor in oxygen. While blood leaving is going to be bright red in color. Why? It's rich in oxygen. Oxygen gas diffuses from the lungs, medium rich in oxygen, to the blood, medium poor, while carbon dioxide diffuses from the blood, which is medium rich in CO2, to the lungs, medium, which is poor in CO2. You have to know that the blood is composed of plasma, white blood cells and platelets, and red blood cells. Plasma, mostly water, carry dissolved molecules and plasma proteins for clotting. Red blood cells transport oxygen and carbon dioxide bound to hemoglobin where there is no nucleus, and they can repair themselves, and they have a lifespan of about 120 days. White blood cells also, they are called the immune cell. And finally, note this note, hematocrit, which is percentage by volume of the red blood cells in blood. The red blood cells, they are disc-shaped. They are anucleated, meaning that they don't have nucleus. They are high in number. We have 5 million red blood cells per millimeter cube. Red blood cells, they contain a special protein which is called hemoglobin of symbol Hb, and we're going to talk about hemoglobin in details next time. Hb, hemoglobin, combined with oxygen or CO2.